Boom! We're back with another Sage Ramble TV episode. It's gonna be a chill one this time, just like any American TV show, the late night show with the 12 guys that do it on the American scene. But yeah, guys, let's just dive in with I know some updates. What's been going through the 3 months since we met. Jay Daniel, Victor, I know you guys are doing a bunch of shit. So let's just get into it.
Woo! Oh no, it's good to be here, dude. I think yeah, I mean it's been a lot these past 3 months for sure. But I think no, I mean I'm focusing more so on trading. Victor's taking over a conglomerate. Uh no, it's crazy, man. I was actually curious, like so I've never lived in this is a little off topic, but I've never lived in the country. Chance seems to live in the country. What's some advice for somebody who thinks the world's about to go to shit and they want to be away from all the big cities? How do you buy a house in the country and sustain yourself?
Well, if you're attached to big city things, don't move to the country. The closest anything to me is about 20 minutes. That's a convenience store, that's a McDonald's, it's a gas station, anything like that.
That's not bad.
If you don't like bugs, don't move to the country. But like I said, I had a bug infestation this morning and I had no idea where they come from. So I sprayed my whole perimeter of my house down with that bug defense stuff. But if you like quiet and you're not a huge fan of people like myself, and you kind of love your own space and just being in your own area and no cars going by, no loud people, no children, none of that kind of stuff, then I mean, it's a great place, man. I mean, I'm not like country where I like wear a fucking straw hat and raise farm animals and shit, but.
Oh, come on. I asked the wrong guy.
You have to choose location first, man. You have to choose location every time. And I'm gonna share this chance. You know, I love you, man. But every time we speak on our business team meeting, it's like, hey man, I can't show up. A storm is coming. Hey man, we got 5 inches of ice. I can't show up. Right? I mean, there's
the horses came out of the cattle.
Bunch of shit going on all the time.
Bro, it's dumb. It's very true though. Like last week we had 2 straight days of super awful thunderstorms and tornado watches, and like my power was off and on, off and on. Internet was in and out, in and out. It's awful, bro. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's the same thing for us too. I live in a weird spot because I'm in one of those suburban towns outside of a big city. So it's like I've got power outages left and right during the summer. I've got 3 minutes down the road, there's an alpaca farm, but the closest grocery store is like 15 minutes. You know what I mean? It's one of those weird situations. It's all about location, though, honestly.
True.
How about the lifestyle? How about the remote lifestyle that we are all a part of?
Shit, don't live in the country. I live next to a field, and they just got done crop dusting it. It smells like dookie outside, bro. I can't even open my windows because my house will smell like dookie.
Oh, that's crazy. It's something, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot because, like, have you guys heard about what's going on with like Russia and China signing a whole bunch of documents and getting rid of the U.S. dollar? And like,
yep.
The U.S. dollar stabilizes the world, right? As you notice, as soon as some crazy stuff happens in the U.S., the whole world is like all over the place. Like, I've been thinking a lot about it. Like, hey, like, and that's the beauty of being in remote sales, right? If you're in remote sales, you can just bounce. You can go here, right? Once they say you can't get a passport, you need a vaccine, that's when we have a little civil war. But until then, right, you do whatever you want. I feel like if the dollar collapses, right, like what are some steps that remote sales reps or just people that work remotely in general can take to protect themselves and their assets? What are you guys' thoughts around that?
I mean, I think that first you have to have assets. And I don't think a lot of remote salespeople have assets. They've got a job, they've got a job that they work, and that's what they do. And they can do it from home, and that's the extent of their remote sales. But a lot of remote salespeople don't have assets. They don't have anything that, if a collapse were coming anyway, that they'd be able to hold on to.
Well, not even hold on to, bro. Like, let's say that, like, because here's the thing, right? And it's always important to explore the consequence of an action, right? Because it allows people to start seeing why change is so important, right? So like for the remote sales rep or just the individual that may not be in the best spot that's listening, have you considered what would happen if the monetary system collapsed? You had to barter because now, like in Venezuela, your dollars are literally becoming like a purse. Like you have $1 million cash and you make more money selling it as a purse for 15 fucking shekels or trading it for bread than you would actually being able to spend $1 million, right? I think that's a probable future. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot, right? Like, do we get a house in the country? Do we travel to a place that has less restrictions, right? What is safe, because the US is considered the most safe and the most stable, right? What if those 87,000 IRS agents are really people from China that are monitoring your finances because freaking WeChat is already doing that? Like, it's just things to think about. And I think until you're in a place where your money is tight, you're making at least six figures, you got stuff put away here and here, right? I just think whatever happens to the world, not only are you fucked, your family's fucked, your friends are fucked, right? And a lot of people don't realize how impressionable the people around us are when we're really starting to grow, right? And so you could literally be responsible for a fucking movement that decides whether your family is like locked down 24/7 because of climate change and, getting all their shit tracked or doing whatever they want, right? In whatever part of the world. And I think it's an important conversation right now.
Bro, I love this topic. I don't know if you guys saw. Jeremy Miner was hosting like a 5-day free training webinar. I always tune into those. He gives so much free shit away. Like it's crazy. And he was having that conversation yesterday about how when the recession hits, because it's not an if, we're technically in one right now, but they keep another conversation for another day. They keep putting off the consequences. Yeah, exactly. But when it's actually when we're arm deep into the recession, that's where we're going to see who's really good at sales, right? Because people aren't going to want to spend their money. People aren't going to want to buy into this BizOp and scale this and do that. Jeremy was saying this is the best time to learn the skills, but it also can be the worst time to be a sales rep if you don't have the skills, right? Because it's when it's going to be like, you're going to have to be damn good at what you do to get people to give up those assets you were talking about when they don't know what the fuck's going to happen in the next year or 2 years because our dollar's tanking, right? And I also agree it's a really important topic to discuss because I mean until we're there, we don't truly know. All I know is that I should have listened to my grandpa because he collects gold and silver and he told me to do it from a young age. That's all I know.
Grandpa's a baller. No, dude, and you know what? And that's a good topic too, because like, what makes an excellent sales rep? Because I can speak for times where I've been horrendous at nothing goes over, even though I'm doing all the right things. And there's times where like I'm doing everything wrong. I'm just kind of free balling and putting it on the table, and everything's closing and everything's working out. And so one thing I've realized lately is the state and the energy that you're coming at the conversation with is equally, if not more important than the skills. And if you add skills on top of that, that's where you're like the fucking 10, 50, 100K a month guy, right?
Oh yeah. Environment is key. Like environment is a key in any sales position. Because honestly, you could be the best sales rep ever and have a horrible job and just be underperforming because you're in the wrong position. You're in the wrong spot. I mean, it's not necessarily all about skills. It's about the environment you're in too, even more so, I'd say.
Right. And environment's huge, but I mean more so in terms of like the state. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, two scenarios, right? You have your niece, let's say she's like 5, right? My nieces are 5, so your niece is 5, all right? She does something wrong. You tell her the same thing twice. This time, you said, hey, that's wrong. You can't do that. And then they kind of mess with you a little bit. They laugh and they do it again the next day and nothing happens, right? Another scenario, you're like, hey, that's wrong. You can't do that. It's going to lead to these consequences. Do you understand that? Almost the same words, but your tone and your energy is different, right? It's going to have an impact. It's going to be different. The effect is going to be different. And so I think right now, because a lot of people are probably doing their sales roles, they're just reading their script, they're on autopilot. I think now is a good time to, in whatever you do, to be very intentional with that process. Sales only works if you're intentional, if you're really on your shit. Like you are legitimately like present as fuck. You're not letting anything slip, right? Like you're being yourself. It's not about a sale at all, right? It's about calling out bullshit and making sure that they get where they want to be. I think treating sales like autopilot is probably fucking up a lot of people right now. And
Bro, real quick, I just want to add, it's super easy to fall into that mode. Even myself, I know you guys have been in
yep.
this game longer than me. I've been closing for over a year. It is so fucking easy to get on a call and fall into that autopilot mode, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
after the call, you realize you're like, dude, what was I doing? Because I mean, you're just like, yeah, okay. You're just asking questions, right? Asking questions to ask questions. And I caught myself doing that the other day on the closing call, and shocker, he didn't close, right? And I listened to the call back as I always do on almost all my calls, and I was like, dude, I wouldn't have even stayed on for an hour. I'd have been like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Right. And I wanted to add that it's even experienced people. I mean, unless you're like, I don't know, bro, some of the guys that have, made millions of dollars per year. Like I would say it's, if you don't play your cards right and you don't stick to a routine and do what you got to do, I mean, it's so easy to fall into that robot mode.
Yeah, I think
100%.
that's the funny thing is, like, listening to you talk about it, you set up like a check on yourself by listening to your own calls, right? And that's making sure that you're in that mindset, making sure that you're in the right state. And a lot of offers don't have checks, which is why a lot of people fall into this mode and they stay in that mode forever. But if you've got a great sales manager, you've got personal checks that you put on yourself, if you've got like, checks and balances that you say, hey, I want to be at my top performing state, it's a lot easier to come out of that state. It's a lot easier to recognize, hey, I'm in a funk. Let me get out of it. Because we all fall into it. But it's how, like, top performers are people who can fall into a funk and get out of it and like
Yep.
check themselves fairly quickly. It's the
Yep.
people who don't have these checks and balances that stay in these ruts, and then they end up leaving decent gigs, or they end up not performing at all because they're just stuck.
Yep. And man, listening to calls, bro, that's like the best. Literally, like if you employ shame if you employ shame and listen to your call and say, "What the fuck is this?" It's good. You're gonna fix it. If you don't listen, you're not even gonna realize. Like a lot of the time, yeah.
100%. And I hate the way that I sound, right? Like
Yep.
the way that I hear myself talk now is different from on calls. I hear myself and I cringe. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Ugh."
Yep.
Yeah, it's like that man, do I really sound like this? Like, what can I fix? And then you catch yourself getting on the next call and trying to like fix it in the beginning, and then you're throwing yourself out because you're too in your head, and then you're just like, you know what, just relax, let me just get it. And
I
then
agree.
when you can relax and like really dive into it and just not care in the moment, that's when it's gold.
I agree 100%. And I know a lot of people shit on tonality, and you shouldn't have to manually, purposely have a certain tonality. But I do believe that if you're genuinely on the conversation and you're talking to somebody how we're talking to each other right now, that tonality is going to flow naturally as opposed to reading a script,
Yeah.
right? And that's one thing that I had to zoom out of in my early sales career, because I went through training through Bill Walsh, and he gave us his framework, and I was just following it question to question, and I got some decent results, but it felt like what you were saying, Jay. I think it was Jay Nano Victor. I forget which one of you guys said it. It felt like a job. I'm getting on these calls to follow a script.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's so evident, dude. Like my current gig right now, I am interviewing. That's my whole job, is just to interview. Right.
Nice.
So I just interview people coming in all day and schedule interviews for myself. And I see it all the time. People come in and the first thing they say is, "Oh, I took this person's training." And I'm like, "Yeah, you didn't have to tell me that, because you're following exactly like you're taught." And there's no originality here. There's no flow here. You're trying to hit points that you were told to hit. Just relax, bro. Just talk to me. Because I'm sitting here talking to you like this. I'm talking like this, just trying to figure out what's going on. I want to make sure that you're conversational. Because what are we doing here? We're having conversations for a living, right? If you can't communicate with me right now in this interview, what makes me think that you're going to communicate on this deal, on this gig?
Yep. As a recruiter, because I'm really curious, when you sit there interviewing people all day, do you do you kind of like see where these people are coming from? Like, this guy is from Jeremy Minor, this guy is from Bill Walsh. Like, are you able to tell?
100%. I can tell in your intro video. I don't even need to get on an interview with you. You don't have to say a word about it. That's why when I'm giving advice to people about interviewing and about, presenting yourself to a business owner or whatever, don't even mention where you're from. Don't even mention what training you took. Nobody cares. I don't care, Jeremy Minor, whoever. I don't care. All I care about is, can you do the job? So translate that to me, and then that speaks better to who trained you than you dropping their name, because you have no clout whatsoever. You have no bearing whatsoever. So you dropping somebody else's name is just that. It's just name dropping. It'd be like me saying, oh yeah, I saw The Rock in the movie and like now I feel like I know him. Like it's the same equivalence. Like it doesn't matter unless I can show you that I'm producing and that what they've done has really impacted me in a positive way. It doesn't matter.
Cool. No, that's crazy, and it's so true. Literally, bro, I can't think of a scenario where blindly following a process without having your personality in there like makes sense. I just can't. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that only works. Oh, there's Chance.
Okay, sorry, bro.
With this 4K
It's not that I had to
thing,
refresh. It wouldn't let me turn it back on.
There you go. Don't worry. But no, dude, I legitimately can't think of a single scenario where not like where being a robot or you can follow a process and be yourself. It's not that hard to do that, right? Mm-hmm. I think when you're not being yourself, I can't think of a single scenario where that plays out in your favor. I see it playing out in the favor of somebody much higher above you that wants to control you, right? Yeah. And that's where we get into the transfer of power. If China takes over the U.S. and monitors everybody, like that, like that's the only scenario where that benefits them. It doesn't benefit anybody in society if you're a robot. It's and that's the hardest part about entrepreneurship, because your body is literally a robot. It's automatic. It does everything on its own. You know, starting a new habit is so hard because you have to check yourself every 3 seconds. Entrepreneurship is a consistent process of fucking creating new habits and checking yourself indefinitely. It's the definition of discomfort, right? And so if you're not willing to do that, then like, you know, don't even think about it, because you're going to suffer and torture yourself.
You hit it on the head. It's like it's a process, and that process the process will not work without you putting yourself into it. Yeah. Right? If you're just following somebody else's process for you, it's not a process, it's a script, right? And following a script only gets you so far. If you've got a process of your own, you've put yourself into it, you've molded the way you think, the way you talk, the way you move, the way you act, the steps you take, then that's when you're successful. Like everybody who's ever been successful, they've followed somebody else's formula, right? There's no one who said, I'm originally successful by myself, I'm a self-made whatever. It doesn't exist. They followed someone's formula, but they made it their own. And because they made it their own, their unique imprint on the market was felt, and they're successful.
Bro, I agree. And one thing I like to add is I feel as we continue to move into this new age of selling,
he's looking for the bugs.
A bird?
Yeah, I see it flopping around in my car.
I hope careful, bro. It might keep
dude, this reminds me of you yesterday, JD. I know when you messaged me and you were like, I'm on this call.
Tell us. Yo, I was on a call, bro.
No, sorry. I saw a robin. It looked like in my car. It was on top. But as we get into this new age of selling with all these, I'm not going to name any names, all these sales guru 2.0s, 3.0s, juniors, prospects are getting smarter and smarter, man. It's going to be harder to be a script junkie and get people to buy because they've heard it before, right? Yep. Because I'm just using this as an example. I think Jeremy Miner is a fucking whiz, and I think his training is great. And I believe if you make it your own, you can have a ton of success out there. It's not really my style. But he said yesterday they've trained like over 400,000 people, bro. When that 400,000 turns into 800,000, right? People are going to know what you're doing, whether you're using any PQ or not, because they've heard it before. And that's where I think I just wanted to tie in what you said, Victor. Making it your own is so important because it's going to give that pattern interrupt. Especially, I'm in BizOp. A lot of people who are looking into a BizOp, they've looked into multiple BizOps and they've been on multiple Zooms. If you sound different and you treat them different than the other guy, it's going to give them that pattern interrupting. You're like, okay, I'm actually going to pay attention to what this guy has to say. And I think that's really important because in our era, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I feel like the majority of sales reps are those script junkies. They find somebody that's successful, they buy their framework, and then they just get on a call and follow it step by step. And it's like,
and it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't work. JD calls it sales daddy. It's a sales daddy mentality. Like you find a sales daddy and you follow them, and then they become the person that you pattern everything after. and you follow their exact process. And then all of a sudden you're wondering, why doesn't this work? I paid all this money for this and it's not working. Like, why? How come it's not working? And it's because you've put none of your own originality into it.
Exactly.
Yep. Oh, you know what? There's this is morbid. This is very morbid, but this is a saying that I think Jordan Peterson said it. He said, "As a man, you don't become a man until your father dies." And what he meant by that is like now there's nobody's gonna save you, right? Now you need to, as yourself, step into the world knowing that like everything's on you and on your shoulders, right? I think when you're blindly following a process, like without being yourself, I think you're relying on the process more than you're relying on yourself. You're relying on something external, right?
Yeah.
To take responsibility for your results. And
It's
so,
true. And it's always all on you. But dude,
Yep.
talking about mobility, you have to tell that story, dude, for me.
oh, yeah, so I'm gonna call, bro. And so this lady, they don't have a lot of funds. Fine, I'm downselling them this course, right? And she's like, yeah, no problem. Let me get my credit card. And then she's like, oh fuck. And I was like, what? And then you hear a guy in the background. Blah, blah. He's like, oh my god. And she's talking to her. And then it gets quiet. And I'm like, is everything okay? She's like, I think somebody's breaking into our house. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. And I'm just sitting here like, okay. And so I text Victor like, yo, I'm on a call and this lady's getting robbed. What do I do?
And I'm like, did you call the police?
Oh shit. And I'm like, man, her husband's there. Let them handle that shit. And so they're doing that for 2-3 minutes. I'm like, I'm not waiting for this shit. I hang up. I get 3 calls from her an hour later. And I'm like, okay, she either died or she bought. She answered. And she's like, yeah, so I bought. How do I start? How do I do everything? I'm like, what about it's handled? Okay.
How is it handled? Did you ever ask that?
Hey,
I didn't.
depending on what state they lived in, handled could mean one or
Could mean
two.
a lot
A
of
lot
things.
of stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, dude. That was yesterday, bro. It was hilarious. I was dying. I couldn't believe it. And she had a strong ass accent, bro. Like,
Yo,
maybe.
speaking of weird
Yeah.
things going on in a call, I was on an intro call with a lady the other day. We were about halfway through, and we're just on the phone, and I'm taking her through my process, right? Kind of figuring out what she's looking for, what she needs, all those good things that we get to. Get about halfway through, where I starting to probe a little bit, and I hear, "Oh my god, someone just rear-ended me!" I was like,
Holy crap.
You should probably go take care of that. We can reschedule our call. She's like, I don't know what to do. Da, 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 da. And I was just like, click.
Oh, shit.
You got to exit the
I
premises.
heard
on
the
that.
brake squeal and then the impact on my call. I was like, whoa, yeah, you need to take care of that. Like, golly. Wow, that
Yeah,
was the
that's crazy.
first time accident has ever happened on a sales call with me before. So it was new. It was new for sure.
That is hilarious. They used to say that on, and it was so they wouldn't be in their car, but on Zoom calls, like on an offer I was on, like that's literally what they taught us to say. Like, hey, like I noticed you're on the phone. We don't want to take any responsibility if you get into an accident, so we can't have this call.
Bro, I didn't know she was in the car because
Right.
just on the phone, and I didn't hear the road or anything like that, her car, none of that until I heard boom. I was like,
That's hilarious.
at first
That's
I thought
crazy.
she got hit by a car, and then she said she was in the car and she got rear-ended, and I was like, well, good luck with that shit.
Hey, that
Those
means
noise canceling's on.
Yeah.
that means the process was working, bro. You ever get so into something while you're driving that you almost crash? You're like, whew.
Bro, yes. You ever get so into something when you're driving that like you go into autopilot and you look up and you're like, how far have I driven?
Yep.
Like, you don't realize how far you've gone. You're like,
Yep.
you like lock back into paying attention. Yeah, that happens.
Miss my
City.
exit.
What city am I in? Fuck. What's wrong with
Yeah.
palm trees? Yeah.
That's the
So-
thing about like processes though, like, you know what I mean? Like listening to something or doing something and you kind of get into it and you get going and you're on your flow and it's just like boom, 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 everything's working. And all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm at the end of this. And the prospect is sitting there like, oh wow, like tell me more. And that's when they buy.
Bro,
Yep.
I love, and it always kind of pumps my ego up a little bit when you get to the end of your process and the prospect is like, okay, so how do I join?
Yeah.
You're like, I did it right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to ask for the close. They're like, okay. Or they ask like, what are the next steps? And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
Lovely. Because
That's indicative of a
you helped them. What does JD say? You facilitated the best decision for them. You didn't have to use sales tactics and objection smash and kind of push them in a corner and trap them in this box to where they either get off the call or they pay. Right.
that's indicative of a great offer and a great salesperson coming together.
Yeah, I agree. Well, fellas, I'm sorry. I have to cut this short. This guy just texted me. He's on the Zoom. He's ready to go. I'm closing down a 7K deal. This has been awesome. I'm going to catch the recording at the end. I would jump back on, but I got to go to the airport right after the call. So I appreciate it. I'll let you guys wrap it up. J. Daniel, Victor, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you guys. We got to come back on yours here soon. Let's get that quick.
For sure.
Let's get it done. See you, man.
Boom.
That's awesome.
That's pretty much it with Chance here.
Chance,
you guys want to keep going?
No, I could go all day, dude.
Yeah, I got time. I have a 2:00, but I got time.
Me too.
I mean, I don't want to bring you guys on here to have 25 minutes. We can cut this short, cut this longer.
Let's go. Let's keep going.
Yeah, we can go. I can't. Go ahead.
So
we got too many ideas, man. We got unlimited ideas. Go ahead.
What's up with you guys? What have you guys been up to? What's your offer? Like, how's things been working for you guys?
Yeah, man. So on my end, I have two things that I'm focusing on. There's one position where I landed. I'm managing director. So it's recruiting services. I'm doing lead generation, and I'm doing overall operations of that thing. It's under the radar a little bit. We so far since I joined doubled MRR, which is a good sign. And then on the business side with Chance and I, we're keeping our group small and intimate. You know, it's some sort of coaching group, more so integration support for sales reps looking to, ramp up on an offer, and we support that performance and support that training all around. So that are the two groups. I mean, Chance are, soon enough promoted to sales manager. So we're both having our own roles as coaches, which is the ultimate goal.
Yeah. Nice. That's what's up.
Coach David. Oh my.
There
we go. That's awesome.
I love it.
That's awesome, dude. I'm what am I doing? So no, dude, I've been really, really locked in on trading, bro. I'm getting pretty close to securing a 100K funded account to basically trade for like a company. It's cool because you get 80% of the profits, so it's a pretty easy. Once you got your skills on point, you get everything consistent. It's a pretty, I wouldn't say easy, but high leverage way to make like 100K a month, which is kind of the goal for me. So I mean that's been the focus, bro. One thing I like about trading is that like once you really, the best traders take like 1 a day or 2 a day. So you look for a certain pattern, you put it in, you let it go all day, and cool.
Like two,
you just made
like 1 or 2 trades a day.
Yes, like you literally, because a lot of beginners, what they do, bro, and this is something I had to learn. A lot of beginners, what they do is they'll stare at the chart for like 8 hours. They'll stay up all night with the phone next to their face or right next in front of the computer, just staring at it and hoping it goes up, hoping it goes down like a gambler. It's all about, and this actually bleeds into sales. It bleeds into every area of life, right? It's all about probabilities. What's the most probable thing that's going to happen? And so there's certain patterns, right? There's they call it candlestick patterns, but there's certain patterns where when this happens, the probability of it going up, of this movement happening, is very high. So if you have 4 events at once, they're called confluences. If you have 4 confluences that something is going to go up, right? And you have a trend that aligns with it, like in the direction of a market, you just put in a buy, you let that shit go all day, bro. Oh, cool. We just made $5,000. And the only time you really invested was the 25 minutes of finding that entry and you let it run. So, I'm getting that down, bro. I'm getting better every day. I'm still doing like my sales gig part-time. And that's kind of it for me, man. That's been my time, focus, and energy. Victor's over here freaking.
Yeah. So I joined a new offer. I left the one that I was at and joined a new offer. What we do is we do recruiting. It's a recruiting service, but also some sales management as well in there with a lot of the clients that we work with. I handle all of the interviews coming in for setters. So all setter interviews come through me, and then I pass them on to the sales managers and they make the decision. So I am not in a position of like, oh yeah, I'm going out and grabbing a bunch of people. And I do, and I can obviously recruit when I need to. But my main focus is just making sure that people come in are qualified and they're quality. And I get to pass them along and pass them through the process. And in that process, they, get connected with some of our clients. And from there, they find jobs and they're managed by our teams, which is awesome. So for me, one of the best parts that I like about the whole thing is it's primarily focused on making sure that we have the right people. And I just do the interview. I funnel them through to make sure that, I'm talking to the right person, making sure that they're aligned with the right offer. And it's a balance. It's a check and a balance that's not there in a lot of recruiting companies. So having that there and being able to flex that interview muscle. And then on the back end, I get to coach them up a little bit. Say someone has a bad interview. I had an interview today that was like, it wasn't too great. I get to send them off a video that I've done before, or send them off a podcast episode that we've done that says, hey, this is, information on how to do this specific thing. So why don't you watch this, get better at it, and good luck, or come back again. It really just depends on what the situation is. But it's pretty cool. I get to kind of put my stamp on their success in a very cool way.
Boom. No, that's powerful.
My mic's being funny. You know what's crazy about that? Because this all started with an ad that was like, hey, do you want to be an inbound closer? Do you want to take warm leads and not do anything and make six figures, right? That's where it all started for the most part, right? It's interesting because we talked about this in our 5-part series of, how to land any gig that we just filmed. We're about to film episode 5. It's interesting because on that series, we talked about it. With sales, and I wouldn't even say just sales, right? With being that business owner, it's about what are the problems I can solve for the individual that I'm talking to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's one problem is, okay, cool, I can close deals that your marketing gets. Another problem is, hey, I can take all those interviews that you're taking off your hands and get you qualified people, right? Another problem is, hey, I can get you leads, right, for your closers to close, right? And these are all things that you could have, 1 or 2 clients could make you 10 grand a month. So it's I think that's the transition a lot of people got to make, because they're all good avenues to get people into the industry. But if you want to stick in it more than 6 months, you need to understand okay, cool, the game is solving problems and providing value, right?
Yeah, solving problems, exactly. And you've got to be able to solve your own problems first, right? For instance, I have 3 little kids. I am at home with my 3 little kids all day, every day, right?
Yep.
So for me, that's a priority. I don't have the time to be, as soon as I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to when I go to bed at 10:30 at night, on sales calls, talking to people all day. I don't have that flexibility. I don't have that availability, right? So I have to find something that works for me, but still brings money in, right? Something that allows me to ebb and flow. And does that mean at this time, I'm not going to be one of those $30,000 a month closers? Sure, that's what that means, but that's okay. I don't need that. That's not my problem. My problem isn't I need 30K. My problem is I need stability and I need to bring in some money here and there, but I also need to have an impact, right? And then while I'm having that impact, I need the freedom and flexibility to take care of my family and create lanes for myself in other areas, right? Build assets in other areas. And I found that. And when I find that, then I'm like, all right, cool. This is something that I can do. This is something that I can work with. This is a way that I can make my impact in the market. And that's what it's all about. A lot of people come in and they're like, oh, if I'm not making 10K a month, if I'm not making 20K, if I'm not making 15K, whatever that number is, then I'm not doing the right. I'm not a top performer. I'm not whatever. No, what performance does your life require? And how are you performing at that peak? Right? If your life doesn't require you to be a 10K a month performer, then what are you striving for? Why are you trying to hit it? You're not set up for it, bro. Set yourself up for it. And then you can hit that. But until then, perform at your pace, your peak.
I think a lot of people are very inefficient, right? And efficiency comes from what's the goal and how do you get there with as little, how do you maximize every input that you put in for that goal, right?
Yeah.
And I think most people, their goal is money, And that's where you're fucked, right? Like, money's the root of all evil. Your goal needs to be like, what are the things you actually want, and how much money do you need to achieve those things, right? And if you get that level of specificity, or however you say that word, specificity, if you get that level of specificity, what happens, right, is now you're moving with intention. You move different, you talk different, right? You play the game differently. And right, burnout doesn't really happen when every single action is pre-calculated towards a specific goal that actually means something to you. Money doesn't mean shit. Like, money really doesn't mean shit. Yes, money can solve 99% of problems or make them easier, but it doesn't mean shit. Like, the problems you want to solve with it are what mean shit. So you need to like set that goal and reverse engineer, and then set the action steps that you follow every single day, and just be ruthless, right? If you find yourself falling off, like, instead of beating yourself up about, okay, well, how can I set up systems and checks and balances like we talked about earlier so I don't fall off, right?
Yep.
I didn't get in great shape. I wouldn't say I'm in amazing shape, but I didn't get in much better shape until, like, I got people who've been going to the gym for 2 years. I started going with them every day. Like, you got to know yourself too, because you're not going to change overnight. So you got to work with your own bad habits, and like, put yourself in a position where the goal gets fulfilled, not like being inefficient in whatever you're trying to do.
Yep. Man, I love this topic about, solving problems in all aspects of life. Like, the things that we learn in, for example, the hiring process that Victor spoke about, it's so much bigger than just that alone. Like, that's how I found my position to now become a director. I had no idea it was the title of the position, but the problems, and solutions that I was providing eventually gave me this position. And it's given me a lot of other positions. Like, one of the other things, here locally here in Sweden, I managed to land a job as a marketing apprenticeship, and it was an 8-figure marketing company, very established, 3 offices, very local here where I'm at. And I thought those were only given out to university students. I was wrong. They were given out for the people that could position them in a way where the contribution given is worth placing them. That was it.
Yep. Dude, titles don't mean anything, bro. Like, Elon Musk gave himself the title of chief twit. Like, like, titles mean nothing, bro. It's just a fancy way to describe something. But what's being described, right? I think if we can start speaking in terms of problems that are being solved and value that's being provided, as opposed to a title, like, a lot more progress and clarity is going to be around. Like,
oh yeah,
dude, you ever seen those resumes where it's like, yeah, I was the facilitator of the agriculture in a very prestigious, like, you're a drug dealer, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's just fancy ways of
drug dealer.
You know what I mean?
Do you guys play golf?
I've played before.
Okay, so when you golf, you'll realize that the more you swing just to swing, the worse off it gets, right? The more you're not, focused, the more aloof you are, the worse your game is. When you're focused, when you're swinging the same way every single time, when you've practiced, when you've put your intention into where you want the ball to go, that's the people who are on the PGA Tour and can tell you, I'm going to hit this ball and it's going to land here, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to putt it, and then that's going to be good, right? Those are the people who are really good at golf, the people who put intention behind every swing. And when you're in sales, getting a closer job means nothing. Getting a setter job means nothing. Being a recruiter means nothing if there's no intention behind it. Why are you doing what you're doing? Put the intention behind everything that you do. Put the intention behind your calls. Put the intention behind your DM messages. And all of a sudden, you'll start to see progress, right? You'll start to see growth. Because without it, you're just swinging aimlessly. And that's, like you said, that's how you get burnout. That's how you get injured, right? When you're just aimlessly swinging just to swing, when you're just like, I'm just happy-go-lucky, frolicking through this sales life, trying to make it work for me, trying to get that 10K. Like, why? What's the purpose? Right? And if you don't have any purpose behind what you're doing, then it's pointless.
That's powerful. That might be a good place to wrap it up, actually. Freaking Victor dropping a bomb.
Yep. Man, I like how you phrase things, Victor. It's always a nice, is it called acquaintance?
Acquaintance? Like a friend
I
who
know.
just
I know. It's,
He's thinking in Swedish right now, so
I'm thinking in Swedish, Cantonese, and I'm translating that back and forth to
I
English
thought we
right
were
now.
friends. What do you mean acquaintance?
Isn't it called that way? Like having a nice guest over?
yeah. It was a
Yeah.
nice acquaintance could be put in that. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
that's good.
just using some ancient words for you guys, trying to show
Yeah.
off.
The
But
ancient
anyways, man,
Swedish secret.
it's been incredible having you two here as guests, and you know, there's gonna be many times we have Jay, Daniel, and Victor here again. You know, you can find these guys on Says at Home on their podcast on YouTube. I believe it's on Apple and Spotify too, and they share a lot of value there. I mean, Says interviews everything, you know, the entire 360 on remote high tech sales, even lifestyle and personal development, which are the episodes that I've watched the most. But it's been awesome having you guys here, and we'll have to check in another time.
All right, man.
Appreciate you, man.
All right,
All right, guys.
end it right here.
Peace.